Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Beer for Breakfast ABV at 91x.com. Nice of you to join us. I'm Tommy. This is Danielle, the newest member of the Pink Boot Society. I think you're still the newest member of the Pink Boot Society. Paul Segura from the Karl Strauss Brewing Company, everyone. And please welcome today, we have two special guests. First of all, Doug Hasker is here, brewer at the Mission Valley location of Gordon Biersch, and also face melter guitar player as well. We'll get to that a little bit later on. I understand. Face melter, and what was the other term we were kicking around, Paul?
Mentor of brewers all over San Diego.
That works.
Yeah.
Wear a variety of hats.
All around good guy.
And also joining us is Dan Anderson, everybody. Dan is a busy guy. Not only is he the assistant brewer at the Mission Valley Gordon Biersch location, he also works over at Groundswell sometimes with Danielle. And he also works at the Rock Bottom location over in La Jolla. So you are racking up all kinds of driving miles around San Diego, making beer for you and you and you and you. So let's start. We've got several different beers to try. Well, first of all, hang on a second. I want to ask a Gordon Biersch question. So tell me a little bit about Gordon Biersch. How long has it been around, and when did it come to San Diego?
We're coming up on 30 years for a company, as a company. Started in Palo Alto, across the street from Stanford.
Oh, okay.
Dean Biersch and Dan Gordon. Dan Gordon had a brewing degree, and Dean Biersch had an interest in opening upper scale restaurants. And the first one was in 1988.
Wow,
and
really?
the brew pubbing laws in California had only been since 1984. You would know this from Karl Strauss. So the first store opened in 1988, and they're credited with having the first sort of upscale brew pub in California, well, in the country, really. And then I think Karl Strauss, the first one, opened in '89, right?
Correct.
The next year.
Yep.
And then, this was our 10th store that we opened here in Mission Valley, and that would have been in November of '98, so 10 years later.
And so you were building a lot of these stores for a while, right?
Yeah, I built 10 or 13 of them, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you wound up in San Diego.
Yep.
He could write his own ticket. They asked him where he wanted to stay or end up.
They didn't have a place for me. They said, pick one.
Let me think about it, San Diego.
I had to kick the guy out and said, I'm taking this one.
So the first beer we're going to try is the Nelson Session IPA. Danielle, if you'd like to do the honors. Got some glasses. And is this one of the stalwart beers at the Mission Valley location?
Well, we're known as a lager brewery. Dan Gordon has the highest degree you can get from a place called the Munich Technical University at Weinstefan, the highest accredited lager brewing school in the world. And so we've over my whole career, I started in 1990 with Gordon Biersch, so I'm on my 27th year with Gordon Biersch.
Wow.
And so for a long time, we were known as just German beer, and we had to be Reinheitsgebot, which limited our ingredients, all of that type of thing. It's only the last few years that we've been able to go outside of the German box and sort of catch up with the times, what Paul's been dealing with in all of San Diego, the West Coast IPA, and opening the box a little bit more. So here's a Nelson Session beer. I'm all about drinkable beers. I'm all about low ABV beers. We all drink and drive. We try not to be drunk and drive. And
But that doesn't mean they don't have to have flavor.
Right.
And you have
This has
done
aroma,
a great
that's for
job.
sure.
I'm mixing a lot of the German sort of techniques with the West Coast techniques. And the West Coast side, too, I'm fortunate to live in San Diego, and I know all the brewers. We all know each other. We have a great community. And if I have a question, I have all the best to ask. How do I do this? How do I do that? And in fact, this Nelson hops, we don't have that under contract. I traded with Thorn Street for this Nelson hop.
Really?
And it's just the way the community works. It's great.
So one thing he's not kind of saying too is that a lot of the brewers in San Diego have gone to this guy for a lot of advice over the years as well. What people don't often realize is that it takes more talent and skill as a brewer to make lagers, especially like low ABV lagers, very clean and consistent. And this is something Doug's been doing for a long, long time. And also, anytime anybody's needed to borrow lager yeast, they know where to go.
Well, cheers.
Cheers to you. Do you
Cheers.
like it?
Cheers. Nice to have you here. Yeah, it's delicious.
That's really good.
Good to have you here, Dan. So when did you come on board, Dan?
I started working in the restaurant in 2012, and then kind of slowly bugged my way into the brewery, and it all kind of exploded from there in early 2014. So
What do you like most about brewing?
That's a hard question.
It's time for the
Actually-
hard question. What do you like most about brewing, Dan?
Drinking beer.
There you go. Good answer.
No,
Drinking it.
a lot of
yeah.
it's just the process, the creativity process, and the smells, the actions, the kind of artistic side as well as the mechanical side really appeals to me. So it's a good blend of everything.
And what kind of hops are going into this particular IPA?
It's just Nelson.
Just
it's
Nelson?
a New Zealand hop. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nelson, Sauvignon, Nelson. The Sauvignon means Sauvignon. It's crossed over with the Sauvignon Blanc grape years and years ago. So if you were blindfolded, you would taste a little bit of Sauvignon Blanc in your flavor.
That's a great hop.
And 4.5%. This is a total session IPA.
You drink it all
Mowing
day
the
long.
lawn can be done after you have some of this.
And then go water skiing. Yeah.
I wouldn't be driving the boat even without any beer. Definitely. Okay, so let's try the, you brought along the Maibach as well. Now, slightly stronger beer and Bach German-style beer.
Bach means stronger. It means billy goat in German, but it's referenced to mean stronger as applied to German beers. Mai means the month of May, so it's a spring Bach or Lent Bach. It's a funny story, really. That we make an Einbecker style, which is northern Germany, and the monks were all licensed to brew the beers, and they had to fast during Lent, but they wanted to drink beer, so they asked the Pope if they could drink beer during their fasting periods, and he said, well, I'm going to have to try it in order to say yes. So they sent it over a horse and buggy over the Alps and down to Rome to the Vatican, and it took about 12 weeks to get there, and it was rancid by the time it got to the Vatican, and the Pope smelled it and drank a little bit of it and said, holy moly, if you guys can stomach this, go ahead. And so they were allowed to drink beer for the fasting period of Lent, and that's the origin of a May Bach.
Wow.
And that's what it was. It's higher alcohol in order to alleviate the hunger pangs during fasting periods.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ooh.
It's also quite nutritious. Now, don't Bachs have to be by German law over 6% to call it a Bach?
Yes.
And this one comes in at 7.
So the Germans will be pleased. This is legal.
Germans would be pleased with this.
Legal
yes.
beer. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Cheers.
There aren't many breweries still making a Maibach. It's
Prost.
I always look forward to that season when Maybach comes out and I can go to Gordon Biersch and have one. Also Oktoberfest.
What season is my Bach or Bach season in general?
Well, in Germany they brew beer to the seasons, so there's a different Bach almost for every season. So in wintertime when it's cold out, a good Doppelbock, which is a more heartier, version of this. It's also quite a bit darker, kind of a double Bach. Or a Weizenbock or there's all sorts
We
of
make a
different
blonde
versions.
Bach as well. That's good year round. It's a lighter style, but 7%.
I feel like you don't see Bachs very frequently when you go out to the breweries around San Diego.
Right.
Well,
Is it because are they difficult to make, or
Because they're malty and San Diego loves hops.
it's because they're lagers. Is really what it is. And there aren't a lot of people making lagers. And now you're seeing them more and more, but they're making pilsners. That's what they're starting with. So not so much. You see them around once in a while. We have a Bach almost always at Gordon Biersch.
And was this the beer that you had when you did the Beer to the Rescue event earlier
Yes.
this month?
Yes.
Okay,
That's
yeah.
why I'm wearing
That
the
was-
shirt,
Yes,
actually.
that was a
So
good time.
This is were you there that
Yeah,
night?
uh-huh.
Oh,
yeah.
you were sitting at.
Yeah,
I
I was.
did.
Yep,
yeah.
I was with that whole
I do
table of
remember.
hooligans.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
Hooligans is right. That was a fun event, and the
That
Barnacles
was.
played.
So you saw the band too.
Oh
Yeah.
yes, oh yes, saw you get down.
Yes, earlier we mentioned Face Melter as far as guitar playing goes, and you've seen the Barnacles before, Paul.
Several times, yeah. Yeah, they're great. Yeah, if you guys get a chance to see Doug's band, I recommend them. They're great. They're awesome.
Just played the Cellar 3 anniversary event, and what do you like playing the most? I mean, what do you like listening to?
We do crazy covers, like B-side covers. I know the kids don't know what a B-side is.
We were just talking about that this morning.
That's funny. So you kind of know it, but if it would be in the movie The Wedding Singer, then we won't do it.
Right.
That's generally our rule of thumb. So they're all covers. They're crazy covers, though. But we have a good time. As I get older, it's harder and harder to play the 2 a.m. shows at the tapping parties, which is what you guys saw for the Maybach tapping party. They go from 5 to 8. And we'll play at Manhattan down in Chula Vista once in a while, and that's a 2 a.m. bar. And I'm just getting too old for that. It's funny. So I like the afternoons. At Cellar 3, I think we play at 1 and then at 3:30 on a Sunday afternoon.
Well, so I mean, when you were choosing B-sides, and it's really cool that you brought that up. I mean, it goes so far into what kind of taste you have. I mean, and B-sides basically meaning like you'd play "Hey Hey What Can I Do" instead of the Immigrant Song. I mean, are there a couple of favorites that you have that like a couple of songs in your set that you like pulling out and surprising people with?
Yes. Ask me to name them, I couldn't tell you. But we also, it's pretty wide variety of music as well. We'll play a bunch of Ween. Dan likes it when we play Your Party by Ween, which is an awesome song. We have a horn player that'll come out once in a while.
Oh,
and
nice.
I look forward to it.
yeah, but it's just a
much.
random song that didn't even make a B-side. But we'll play anything from old Lou Reed and Velvet Underground all the way to Vampire Weekend,
cool.
Chromeo, some, and a lot of Stones, some, but not the big hits.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
He plays that solo on Sultans of Swing, man.
Oh, yeah.
That's an A-side.
Yes.
But we do it backwards.
Any Black Sabbath ever thrown into the set or anything like that? Or,
We did War Pigs for a while.
did you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good
But
one.
we can't play that at Gordon Biersch.
This Maybach's delicious, man. It's bready, slightly toasty, slightly caramelly. Got a lot of nice malt complexity in this beer. I love this.
In the West Coaster Fall did a full-page ad, which they always do, and they had a list of all their new beers, and they said, "Bach don't run," is their Maybach, and underneath it said, "Almost as good as Doug's." It's in the ad. It's pretty funny in the new West Coaster.
Really?
Which is a huge honor because those guys make excellent beer.
Bach don't run, play on the Ventures, walk don't run.
Yes, exactly.
Love it.
Yeah.
So we're, Danielle is already pouring the Belgian IPA, and this is made with Belgian Hoegaarden yeast.
Yeah, it's a White Labs 400 for all you brewers out there. I wanted to make a White Rascal, and I ended up making a Hoegaarden, and the yeast was so expensive, I needed to reuse the yeast. So I went to Dan, and I said, "Here's your beer."
Came to me. And I made an IPA
Dan, your
out of
project
it.
for today.
So Dan can speak to the beer, but
What
I'd
else
like to
would I
say
make?
something about Dan before he talks. Over the years, I've brewed for 20-something years, 25 or more. I've had a lot of assistants. There's 3 that have made me a better brewer because they ask the right questions or they do the right work. Dan is one of them. So I like to...
That's awesome.
So this one, I kind of gave him, here's the hops, here's the yeast, here's the malt. What can you come up with? And so he'll tell you about the beer.
I came up with an IPA, of course, because this is San Diego. Using the Belgian yeast, but a pretty simple malt, a little bit of wheat. And then we used the Equinox, Meridian, and Simcoe hops.
Nice.
So when it comes to making a beer, what are you thinking? Like, when you're like going into it and you're starting, like, what do you start with? And are you thinking of what your end product wants to taste like, or are you putting things together and seeing what does this taste like?
It depends on the beer, I suppose, but I would say the majority of the time is you would think about the end product. You'd think, what do I want it to taste like, and now what do I need to put in it to make it taste like that? Essentially, that's what you're going for. It's a little bit trial and error sometimes, a lot of times, but it's a lot of educated guessing on that front.
It's delicious, man. You get a little bit of that white pepper from that yeast. It's not super phenolic.
No.
And then these fruity hops
Oh.
just take over.
Yeah, the Meridian, I was very happy with the Meridian. Really fruity, really berry characteristic.
Yeah. Get a little orange in there, too. It's really
Yeah.
nice.
It's
And
excellent
it
beer,
finishes
yeah.
dry and crisp. Really good.
That is really, really good.
And for Gordon Biersch, I'm sorry, Tom.
No, it's a good guy.
Making ales, especially ales like, the Nelson and this one, is fairly new. I mean, you guys are cranking out some great stuff. If people have visited Gordon Biersch in the past and didn't see, anything but German, I challenge you to go back in because there's a lot of great, hoppy ales like these now at their location.
How's the reaction been?
Excellent. Yeah. Mostly amongst the brewers, because they've known me forever, and they know that with Gordon Biersch, I think one of the first connotations is that it's going to be clean, and that's how I've approached the whole ale side of it. That I'm trying to do clean work and then complex on the malt side as well. Mm-hmm. So I think we're achieving that. They're really good beers.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. Thanks.
We have had on Beer for Breakfast, we've had 1 or 2 Belgian IPAs. I mean, so it's not something you see every day, but it's not an entirely unusual beer. But this is tasty.
It's everybody's least favorite beer style, it seems. But
really?
No, as a generalization, yeah, it's one of those unpopular popular categories. I feel like, yeah.
A lot of
But
times
depends how
people
you do
think
it.
the bitterness of the hops takes away from the farmhouse of the yeast, that it's a contrasting, in a bad way, sort of thing. And I think Dan nailed it on this one, where it's complementary.
I think they balance each other really,
Yeah.
really well. And I mean, I think that one of the great things about Gordon Biersch is because you're such a recognizable name, you're opening up to an entire new audience of different beer styles that you can then go to, one of the smaller breweries and think, oh, I had this style at Gordon Biersch, because you appeal to such a wide audience. And I think that's super, super awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
What I like about Gordon Biersch is, well, aside from, Doug and all sorts of things, we as a craft brewing community are still in the process of weaning people away from Budweiser, Coors, Miller, and all of that stuff. And at Karl Strauss, we've always tried to have these sort of stepping stone beers, these beers that, bring people in to craft beer. And Gordon Biersch has been doing that as well for a long, long time, perhaps doing an even better job at it than we have. But you've made a lot of converts, and I think the entire community owes you a big hand of gratitude for that, for your efforts, man.
I appreciate that. Yeah, we've tried. I'm not sure we've been too successful. We get a different crowd than most, and we're not cool. The hipsters won't think we're cool, and I don't even know what cool is anymore. I'm too old.
But you guys get the average Joe in,
Yeah.
And that's. They're going to go, what do you have that's like a Bud or Miller or Coors? And you hand them a Pilsner or a...
Right.
I think he's got the best Hefeweizen in town. So you put those kind of beers in front of people, well, wow, this is craft beer? I didn't know it could be so clean and refreshing, and I really like this. And maybe they'll kind of venture up to a Maybach next time around, or, whatever. And that's good. And that's,
Good
turning
introduction.
people on to craft beer.
And as far as chasing the cool, just open a tasting room in Beer Mar in North Park or Vista, and you'll be in good shape.
I'm not sure I care.
That's what I wanted to hear.
I'm not, I have to call a hipster to find out what's cool today.
Not caring, so you're already there.
It's not a big deal. I don't really care.
Well, now I'm old and grumpy, right? Hipster-driven industry to not care. That's a not good business.
Well, making beers that you like is certainly a hell of a good first step. And these are some terrific beers we tried today.
The brewers get it, and any day you go in there, you'll see a lot of brewers in there, and a lot of them come and ask my advice. I know lagers inside and out, so it's fun. So anybody that comes in, especially if I'm around, I'm happy to talk about beer too. And Dan does.
He's right. The people who are in the community who know beer know, what it takes to make beers like this clean and consistent time after time. Really well-made lagers. It's hard, and he's a master.
Right. Right on. Well, Doug Hasker,
Thank you.
nice to have you here today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Gordon
Thank
Biersch,
you.
Mission Valley. Yeah.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. Dan Anderson, good to have you here.
Thank you.
Try out the Gordon Biersch location in Mission Valley, and make sure you check out more Beer for Breakfast ABVs and just Beer for Breakfast, the radio version. You can catch up with all of that at 91x.com. Chances are you're probably there already. So go check out another one. Thanks, you guys. Doug, Dan.